which I put in a 50-pound weight, and doing 10 reps. You know, the 10 reps is going to be harder, but you're going to get a better lasting result. And it's the same thing with drawing. Sometimes if you're drawing and you're sketching, say, you know what, I'm going to nail that person's head in just one line. And then once you have that under your belt, then try to play with opposition, even though it's, you know, maybe a symmetrical visual. And say, well, I'm going to play the right side against the left side. Whatever line I put on the right side will not be reproduced on the left side. Does that make sense, folks? I mean, again, if I'm saying anything that doesn't make sense, you can call me on it. Yes?
Is that why you choose to just use paint instead of mapping it out with a pencil first? Is that one of the reasons?
Yes, I do, because I like to live dangerously, Brandon. And I know the body very well. So when I first started, I certainly sketched. I did not go there with a brush. But I know the anatomy of the body, and this forces me to see a little bit harder and make choices. Whereas if I'm sketching, I don't have to be as disciplined. You know? But if I am making just one line, I have to really think about it. You know, how am I going to nail that? You know, I'm looking at the shape, and how am I going to put that in so it makes sense and has clarity and isn't just made up? You know, I have a problem with fashion illustration that sometimes it's thought to be very loose and have no basis in foundation of drawing. And true fashion illustration, we live with the figure. You know, we really study the figure and the anatomy, and we're fantastic draftsmen. And that extends outside of just drawing the figure. I think once you can see and know what you're doing, you can draw anything. And that's my firm belief. I think that once you have the ability to look, analyze, observe, and evaluate what's in front of you, it doesn't have to be a figure. I tell my students, after I teach them to break down the figure in 5 shapes or 7 shapes, now go to Central Park and sit somewhere and do a landscape drawing, but break it up into 5 shapes, and they're able to do it. Whereas before, there are leaves, there are shadows, there's light, there's dark, there's people, there's perspective. They don't know how to do it, but once they sit there and break it up into 5 shapes, they're able to do it. So I think it's a very easy formula for seeing and for expanding your vocabulary too. So now I did the same thing. I kind of put, I gave a little looseness to her shawl, and I put this in. And I think what I want to do is I just want to, because I did this on Dane, is I want to give a little bit more meat and direction to your skirt. So, yeah, can you go back, Tomo? That's fantastic. Thank you. And again, I just like to keep a simple color palette. I think it's just makes it a little bit more interesting for me. And I love mixed neutrals. I'm very much a champion of mixing colors and neutrals. And again, not knowing where one color is going to come to the next. Because I have all these dark colors here, and then sometimes something will show up that's just so incredible that you really wouldn't have thought about initially. And my students ask me, well, what color is that, Bill? And I tell them honestly, I really don't know. I use neutral gray, and I use Payne's gray. I use black. I use iris blue, and tapestry yellow, and they all get mixed up. Mahogany, and they all get mixed up at one point or another. And I like that. I think that's really fun. All right, so I'm just going to do that. Okay, and that's it. So, I think for me, less is more. I don't like to do a lot of, it's a little wet, but it's probably going to drip, which I said is okay. So I don't like to do a lot of information. For me, the challenge is to find what's really essential in the figure and the fashion illustration. And so I'm going to show you something. So let's do the same pose, okay? Because I want to show them something else. I have a section in my book called Mapping the Figure. And, I'm going to do this. So it's the same pose, and I'm just going to draw this in shapes without thinking so much about the shapes as I usually do. And in my book, when I talk about mapping the figure, I'm basically talking about that without selectivity, your drawing can get a little boring. It can almost become like a paint by number, so to speak. So once you start selecting and being aware of what to select, it gets to be a little bit more interesting. Or a lot more interesting. Quiet, Dennis. What happened?
It's early yet.
Okay. You're waiting for the donuts to show up.
How do you plan your placement?
Well, right now I'm not. I'm actually putting the figure in the middle.
Right.
But usually I'm very conscious of the space, the frame, and I never put the figure in the middle. I usually put it on the side, or I'll crop the figure. I'm cropping the figure now because I'm so close to her, so I can't really get back.
But if you're not sketching ahead of time, you've got to work it out in your head, basically.
I do. Well, you know, I keep a sketchbook, and you can relax. I keep a sketchbook, so I'm not going to do the whole thing. But you see, I'm not really making a choice here. I'm putting every single one of these in. And so just give me that one more second, okay? So I can just show them what I'm talking about. I'll be right with you, Richard. I just want to close this off. Okay. So this is being a little bit more selective. You see what I mean? So rather than putting everything in, I'm thinking of making a choice and just putting that in and this area and that area and playing one off of the other. You can relax, Toma, and I think I'll get Dana to come out next. I keep a sketchbook, and to me, it's invaluable as far as forcing me to live outside of my comfort zone. There are 50 pages. I usually gesso them, and every time I do a drawing, I'm very conscious of the frame and the shape of the page, and I'm always trying to compose the figure in a different way than I did the page before. I like working multiples. If ever you come to my studio, I have small pieces, and I feel very safe with multiples because there was a time I paint and I was stretching canvases, really big canvases, and there was such a pain in the butt. It took so long, and they became so precious. I would gesso them and sand them down, and so I had to do something incredible in my mind, which means it was dead in the water. It wasn't going to happen. So I had spoken to my teacher at SVA, and he said, well, why stretch them? Just get a bunch of canvas, don't stretch it, prep it, bring it in, and I work from models, so I was working from models, and he said, because I was working in paper, and he liked my paperwork, and he said, just do the work on the canvas, and if a good one comes up, stretch it. And it's a great idea, great premise if you become too precious. So I use that with my sketchbooks, and whenever I do a painting or a little drawing, I always make sure I have 20 sheets of prep paper, so I don't have to care. See, I believe that for me, being successful means being willing to fail. And a long time ago, I had graduated from FIT, and I was taking classes. I was a little insecure, so I took a lot of classes. I wasn't that good, quite frankly. And I started to get better, and I was in an evening class. I didn't pay for it, I was just sneaking in. And I was a little bit of a star, because I was older than the students there. And I would do drawings from the model, and these kids would come over, and I wasn't much older than them, but they would look and say, oh, he's great, look at that guy. And my ego started to get a little big. And I was working in magic marker, and I wanted to work in brush. And my fear was that if I started working in brush, the drawing would just suck. And then what would these kids say? You know, look at that guy, he didn't do so good. And you know what? That was the voice on the shoulder, and I got rid of it. Because I thought, it's not about them, it's about me and my progress. And I went and I worked in brush, and they did. They came over and said, ew, what's that? And I just let go of it, and I just kept working in brush, and it taught me something. Don't be afraid, you know, because as artists, I think our personal challenge is to live outside of our comfort zone. Because how do you grow? You know, I don't think there's a way to grow if you constantly do something that's comfortable. And I'm very comfortable with this. So that's why I try to mix it up with the colors so I don't know what's going to show up or to know what to expect when I do a drawing. I work with mixed medium. I throw things into the mix. I ask the models to change constantly. I think that's very important. How you doing? Isn't this fun? Yeah. We're going to be here tomorrow too, but no, it's easy.
Do you use flat brushes always?
Do I what?
Flat brushes, not round ones.
Flat brushes. Yeah, I use flat brushes. Very good question. Because I can have more control. You know, depending on what I want to do. I have a Sumi brush that I use, but I need to be able to, is that a pose? Yeah, why not? I need to be able to get control. So with a flat brush, and especially the brushes that are angled, they're really great, especially for fashion illustration, because I can get like almost like a line quality if I want, and I can get a straight line. I can get a little bit of line quality, as you said. I can also do, they're really great for eyebrows. You know, they work really well with eyebrows. And I can get really finite with them if I want to. You know, you can capture a lot of information. I always put these little nostrils. It's become my thing. I don't know. I do portraits on the side for a company, and these brushes are great because I can get the detail, and I only have 20 minutes to do the portraits. So these work really well. You know, I get a little bit of that, and then if I want to get a little crazy, I don't have to see much with me. I also have one of those foam brushes that I smear a little bit, but and then sometimes, you know, it's really nice. My water's getting dirty, but I'm at the church. You know, if you get a little bit, the great thing about the watercolor is if you get a little wetness with it, you know, something like that, then you could go back in with a smaller brush and put in, you know, a little bit of detail. Sometimes I use this side of the brush, believe it or not. You know, so you get something like that sometimes. And then, if ever I have to finish something off and I have time, I just always do like a brush stroke to do a collar. You know, it's kind of a quick and easy way to finish off those portraits when I do them. I do portraits of this women for Christian Dior, the signed a contract with them. They're very nice, but I only have 20 minutes to do it. And then sometimes I might even go back into this with a little bit of white. I don't know if this white's going to work. Oh, she's got this white. It's a very easy way to do it, I think. Oh, thank you, Erica. You're such a sweet. Okay. Dan, give me another pose, and then I think what I'm going to do is, I think we're almost done. That's gorgeous. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm going to do that. And I think I'm just going to break this up into simple shapes without any excuse me folks, I'm sorry, but without much line into it.